Close enough. So what you got?
I think it's a dirt bike. It's a dirt bike, right?
It's a red one. That means it's gas, right?
Ooh.
In a manner of speaking, you're right.
Yeah.
So Rieju, there's always some concern over the pronunciation. This is the closest way I can say it to how the Spanish do, and I think they know how to say it. So anyway, plus I'm always excited to ride it, so yay, Rieju. Anyway, so how this bike came to exist, as everyone is fairly familiar with, KTM Group bought Gas some years ago, but they were mostly, to my understanding, buying the brand because they wanted the trials bike technology, because KTM didn't have a trials bike. So like they did with Husky, they issued a new red KTM and called it a Gas. They took the trials bike, they kept the name, and then they sold all the technology for the dirt bike to Rieju. So when you ride a Rieju, you are riding something that is quite similar to the pre-KTM Gas. Few tweaks here or there, but there have not been any major updates since then. The first one will actually be coming out with a 300 MRI with their injected version later this year. Released in Europe, we just don't quite have it here yet. So what we're looking at here is actually, and you might come forward because it's got a nice little sticker here. It is one of the Alfredo Gomez limited editions, which is kind of cool. We bought it mostly by accident because my dad wanted to have a motorcycle that I couldn't steal parts off of. And at the time he bought this, I was still riding a Sherco. So he got this and kind of figured too, we could see the writing on the wall with how things with Sherco USA seemed to be going. So he's like, well, then we'll already have one of these as a potential bike to test if we end up going that direction. What we didn't realize when we bought the Gomez edition is okay, so like when KTM releases a 6 days edition, we all know that's some fancy graphics and a skid plate, right? Like, it's not really a lot. Hey, I'm allowed to say whatever I like now. We just had a whole conversation about this last video. Anyway, so now that I'm allowed to say whatever I like because it doesn't really matter anymore, kind of assumed it was the same thing. Like, okay, it came with a really trick skid plate and some other stuff, cool. No, it is a replica of Alfredo Gomez's race engine that is in this motorcycle. Which I will admit, when I was trying to ride it at Sprint Enduros and wondering if I had forgotten how to ride a motorcycle, like there was a little bit of concern there. But then I got to take this thing to an actual hard enduro, and I have never ridden a better hard enduro bike. Now, of course, I've never even ridden a bike that was set up for hard enduro. I've ridden my NEPG bike and turned the clickers real soft and prayed. But yeah, so this thing is an absolute weapon at the hard enduros. I really look forward to competing on it at TKO here in a few weeks, maybe a month out.
We'll see you
and
there.
It's oh yeah, that'll be good.
So what
maybe
makes
do this
it
again.
so special for hard enduro compared to the regular bike?
The power delivery is quite different. It is kind of similar almost to a really big trials bike in a way. Like, you don't have a lot of bottom end power because they don't want the bike to spin, they don't want the tire to spin. And then there's a big mid-range hit, kind of like think about how a trials rider rides. They load the clutch, explode with it. So you've got that big mid-range hit to get over obstacles, and then very little over rev because they don't often need to go all that fast. So you can understand why it would be excellent as a purpose-built bike. Did not like sprint enduros. I think the bike actually shed tears of joy when we showed up at a hard enduro for the first time. I was like, yes, thank God I'm home. But I got to ride it at the Shotgun Hard Enduro in Pennsylvania. I had ridden the National Enduro in Georgia the night before and caught a red eye and had a whole series of logistics, so I was super happy with the second place there, given that I was coming in with a bit of a disadvantage. And then Silver Kings, I drove out to Idaho. That was a super cool race. Totally want to go do it again next year. And ironically enough, I was racing Alfredo Gomez's sister, Sandra, who I've had a long-standing rivalry with in various different series. We've raced each other in enduro cross and at 6 days and at hard enduro, and she is undeniably the queen of hard enduro right now. Like, I can't touch her. I'll call a spade a spade. Like, she's got me so covered it doesn't really matter what I do. So I was super stoked again to get second there and like sort of keep her in sight for a period of time. Like, for me, that was a total win. And yeah, so that's what we've got here with the Gomez model, and I would like to apologize to all of the viewers. Normally my bikes are in better shape than this, but I haven't actually cleaned it up since Silver King, so you're looking at the bike kind of as it was when it came home.
Well, hard enduros aren't exactly easy on bikes.
No, in fact, might be one of the hardest things you can do to a poor motorcycle, at least from not so much the engine. Like, the engines get hot, true, but it's really the...
Cosmetic?
Not even cosmetic, structural. Like, flattened frame rails. I tore a foot peg off. Oh no, where's my lever? Like that's kind of what you run into with those.
So before we transition off of to the other Reiju, is there any chassis or suspension difference for this Gomez bike?
There is no chassis difference. I am unsure about suspension differences simply because we immediately took everything out and had to redo it for my weight and size. So I think the valving might be different, but again, I've almost always revalved suspension also, so like I don't entirely know. I think probably yes on the suspension valving, but I cannot say with certainty, so I do not want to mislead our viewers. So maybe.
If they went as far as to change the motor characteristics...
from a logical standpoint, yes, but you never know, so...
So, on to explain what bike you're riding, because you're riding the ISDE or the 6 days version.
Yes, right? And as best I can tell, the 6 days version is really just a plastic difference between that and the MR Pro. So the power characteristics there are a lot more like traditional 300 two-strokey. Like it's got a really nice pull off the bottom, decent mid-range, and a bit of over-rev. Like I feel like it makes a very linear power, which I prefer. I don't ever rev a bike, ever, really. I have a tendency to short shift. That's just my riding style. So we did a few things to make it, to just shift that power downward, simply because I don't need over-rev I'm not using. So let's bring that down. So the main thing, really the only thing we had to do to that bike, besides obviously, it does have a carburetor, so you do have to remember when you're going to places with altitude or the temperature has shifted by like 30 degrees, you might need to, oh, and you have to remember to turn your gas off when you lean the bike over. Remember that one the hard way. But yeah, so the main thing we did was just put a flywheel weight in it to help move that power down towards the bottom, give it a little more rotating mass so it didn't fall off quite as fast. But
so motor and power wise, what do you think it compares to on other two-strokes wise? Like if you had to find the closest comparison.
Can we start by talking about the chassis?
Absolutely.
Because I think it's actually from a power, and well, now we can just get the power conversation out of the way. It's quite a lot the same. As far as like 300 two-strokes, it's a 300 two-stroke. It rides like a 300 two-stroke. There's not, I would say it's got a bit more like of a, comparing it to the two-stroke I've ridden most recently, the Sherco, because like my beta knowledge is like 6 or 7 years old. I don't know that I can really make a fair comparison there. This feels like it's a bit of a revier engine. Like it wants to be in the mid-range a little more, whereas the Sherco is more of a like bottom end. But again, the differences are minute and easily adjusted with a few small setup things. So nothing massively wild there. Then as far as chassis, the biggest thing I noticed is the chassis is like, can't remember what we said, either an inch or a half inch shorter than the Sherco. So it turns exceptionally well, but it does feel a little less stable and planted when you're in like longer high-speed things, really getting motion on the bike. It feels just a bit twitchier. But again, you're gaining that. It's a gain-loss thing. Do you want to be able to turn a little sharper? And because of that, it's also super nimble. So like if I'm in a line and I suddenly decide I don't like that line, boom, I'm in a different line now. I can just do that. Now, again, we're comparing, I feel bad that we're comparing a Sherco and a Rieju, which are two less ridden brands in the US, so probably this is going to not make sense to many of the viewers. So as far as chassis, I feel like I can kind of compare it to the pre-chassis change KTM Gas Huskies, which is something people have a lot more experience with. Now, I can't really compare the engine because that's really an apples to oranges. Like a 354 stroke and a 300 two-stroke are not the same. Like there's just not really a whole lot of commonality there. But I do feel like the Sherco and the Rieju both have it, like they turn a lot faster, a lot better in my opinion. It's almost like, the way I like to describe it, there are some bikes that are like paddling a canoe and some that are like paddling a kayak. Some of them prioritize that straight line stability. Some of them prioritize turning and nimbleness. I feel like the Sherco and the Rieju err more to the side of kayak, and your KTM group bike is more canoeish. And from what I've understand, even though I've never ridden one of the new chassis KTM group bikes, I think they only doubled down almost on that.
So tell us a little bit about what you've done to make the bike better, or make it for you. Obviously, you have KYB suspension on this, right?
Best out of the box you can get.
Yeah. So what other, because everyone does suspension for themselves, and like you said, you already did the flywheel to move the power a little bit, but what have you done that you feel like has actually made a difference to help you?
The flywheel was the most substantial thing for me, other than obviously suspension. Now, as far as just like trick aftermarket parts, we did change the exhaust out. We have tested with both an FMF and an OXA, and they seem pretty comparable to each other. I do like the FMF. I believe it's the gnarly, the one that gives it a little more bottom end grunt. Like we discussed, I prefer bottom end hit on a bike. I want it to like lurch out of my arms and then not really do a whole lot after that generally. Then I do want to talk about my T-Rex throttle. It looks cool and it is fully unbreakable. You cannot shatter the throttle tube. You cannot break this. I have tried everything from looping it out down mountains. I've never taken like a hammer to it, but I suspect it would do perfectly fine with that. Those guys are also really cool. They started out making throttles for 50 cc's primarily. The guy who owns the company had some of his kids went to Loretta's and he felt like they would break throttle tubes and he felt like it was almost like a dangerous thing. You know, have a little kid that's got like something going wrong. That's not a good scene. So he started out making those for 50s and then ended up branching out. He supported Cody Webb for a while when he was on when Cody and I overlapped on Sherco's. I kind of knew about him through that. And apparently Cody Webb couldn't break it either. So I figure if Cody couldn't break it and I couldn't break it, like it's gotta be good, right? And I definitely have broken other throttle barrels. So it's nice to have something, like this is a big part. You know, I like to run it at National Enduros, but it's almost a necessity for me at a thing like a hard enduro where you're going to be dropping the bike, or at 6 days where it just is such an important event, I can't afford to have problems.
So something I was curious about is you have a map switch, right?
Yes.
Does it make a significant difference? Can you tell a difference between the maps?
Yes, it does make a difference, and for this bike, I prefer to run it in the sunny mode. For the regular 300, the rainy mode feels a little bit better most of the time, unless I'm like really super high speed.
Okay.
Like it's not a huge difference, but it's enough so like, okay, like at Snowshoe, I was running it in the sunny mode because like, you know, wide open ski roads, right? You guys were there for that. And I remember crashing and going down the ski, I'm like, what is going, and then I looked down and went, oh, when I crashed, I hit that, so we're just gonna flip that right back into sunny mode, and yeah. So it is not like a night and day difference, but it's certainly something you can notice.
So you have Nissan brakes and you have a Magura clutch. Coming from the Sherco having all Brembo, does it that big of a difference for you?
Not in terms of reliability or function, but the feel of the Magura was a lot different than the Brembo. It took some getting used to. Like it felt like my clutch was weird, but then it was just, that's how they feel, you know? Like it's certainly not a bad thing. It's not like it's like a bad clutch pull or like it was just different, right? And anytime you have something different, be it better or worse, it's gonna take you a minute to kind of get the hang of it. As far as other products, it's not here, so I feel bad pointing it out. But my XC gear mount is currently on my bike I'm taking to the 6 days team camp. Oh, do you guys have one? Perfect. Okay. Are these cool or are these cool? How they work is they've got the two polymer inserts, which are nice because they've got different thicknesses, like densities of foam. So you can either have more dampening or less. Especially given that I've had extensive elbow injuries that create pain in my wrist also. Having this was a huge difference for me. I didn't hurt after riding anymore. And Lance and Lisa at XC are the best. So just imagine this, but red and black and cooler and matching my bike. We'll just like...
If you squint
And pretend it's on there, you know. But yeah, no, they're another company that I'm super happy to work with that I think... Because there's some stuff like... Nobody needs an anodized clutch cover that looks shiny, right? That's just, you're spending. Okay, I've never been about the bling. Like, I like a bike to look good, but really, well, I don't know, you look at this and maybe you think I don't like a bike to look good, but you know what I mean. And then the other thing we do typically, again, not necessarily on this motorcycle because I have been using it as a practice bike and all my real goodies are on the bike I'm getting ready to take to 6 days team camp here in about a week. Wheel works. I've got a wheel builder who uses DID rims and Buchanan spokes and really makes a bulletproof wheel. Like you cannot... I've ridden an entire 6 days and checked my spokes at every check and not had to tighten them. Like just perfect. And especially with that being a marked part at the 6 days, you can't really afford to damage your rim because you can't replace it.
For people who don't know what marked parts are.
Yes, at 6 days and some other FIM events, like the FIM Hard Enduro Series, I believe is the same. Enduro GP is the same, but a little bit more limited in what they mark. There are some parts that you cannot replace during the event. You break it, sucks to suck, you ride with it. I believe the engine cases are marked, the frame is marked, the rims are marked. If I gave it some thought, I could think of the rest of them, but suffice to say, there are things you can't swap. Wheels are one of them, so you want to make sure you've got something that's built well.
So for the average Joe, I know you're a Super Factory Pro rider, but...
Super Factory Pro rider. Can I put that on a business card?
Absolutely.
I like that.
Absolutely. Trademark.
Hey, yeah, it does.
So what's it like getting parts for the average Joe for one of these?
Well, before I was technically had my contract signed with them, I had to order parts, and they're not everything. Okay, so like something like a Magura, you can order that on Rocky Mountain. Like other bikes use Magura, KYB suspension components. There's componentry that is universal to any bike, really, right? The hey there. Listen, I need you to move that. I can't focus. I can't focus with that tail in my way. All right. Oh, hi. Hi there. How are you doing? You're knocking my hat down, buddy. Okay. Where was I? Oh, getting parts. So for Rieju OEM parts, the nice thing is they are meant to be ordered through a dealer, which means you're supporting your local dealer instead of Rocky Mountain ATV, cough, cough. I know they give back to the sport. They sponsor a really big team with one of my major rivals on them, so maybe that's some of it too. But anyway, my dad was a dealer. I know how hard it is for dealers in the modern retail environment. It's nice to buy from your local dealer, so you give your local Rieju dealer a call. A lot of times they can drop ship you the parts directly if they're in stock with Rieju USA. And you do have the ability to order directly from Rieju USA as well. Like you can just go right to the distributor's website, do your parts lookup. They've got microfilm on there. You can figure out exactly what you need. Like you could do the whole thing yourself and not have to lump the dealer in, but like, hey, remember, support your local dealer. Speaking of which, I think Bearing is blocking most of my hat, but you will see I'm wearing a Hall's Cycle hat, which is my local Rieju dealer, and they are fantastic.
Bearing approves?
Does Bearing approve?
Bearing approves.
Okay, so he actually hauls cycles. First off, he's been involved with our 6 Days program for a long time, and I grew up racing against his son, Jared, in the District 17 hare scrambles. So Jay and I go way back. But he's been selling these since they were still called gases, right? So when I wanted to get that flywheel in, or when I had any question about jetting or setup, he had me dialed. Like I would credit him with almost as much of my success this year as I would with Rieju itself. Like he's really gone above and beyond for me. He's a great guy. So like, support your local dealer, and if you're in the Midwest, it's this guy. Yeah.
So to wrap it up, if you had to recommend this bike for somebody, what category of rider or riding would you recommend? Not necessarily the Gomez bike.
Okay, well, I was saying the Gomez bike, that's a very easy question. It's a hard enduro. Do you like suffering? Pick this.
Yep. But no, like, so your actual ISDE or the standard, what kind of rider would you recommend for that? Because the first thing that comes to mind for me is a Colorado rider that rides a lot of trails in the mountains and they're not necessarily going fast. That would be the first idea that I would have, but what do you think?
To a degree, yes, but I think that does undersell the fact that this bike can go fast. The first thing, you have to recommend it, though, to someone who is a die-hard two-stroke guy. These bikes are only two strokes. If you don't like two strokes, you're not going to like this bike. With that being said, if you are a two-stroke guy and if you do more single-tracky technical, like if you trend more towards the single-track technical local hare scramble kind of guy, that's where this bike shines. A GNCC, it's a four-stroke game out there. Like, you can be competitive on a two-stroke, it's just a little bit harder. But what I would most recommend it to is, are you somebody who wants to be able to do almost anything on your motorcycle? Do you want to go trail riding tomorrow and then hit the moto track next week and then maybe go to the local hare scramble on Sunday? This is your bike.
Awesome. Thank you for your time.
Of course.
B-roll, B-roll, B-roll.